mentioned earlier that George Herbert Walker Bush Sr., as we call him, passed away. He was old.
Yeah, he had a good run.
Yeah, he had a good run. Oversaw at least one war where tens of thousands were killed.
Also, all the covert actions.
Right. Not to mention all the things he probably did in the CIA. Had to go arrest Noriega so that Noriega didn't spill the beans.
If Noriega ratted out, the whole pipeline through Latin America would be ruined.
He had a rich life. I mean that both literally and metaphorically. He was extremely wealthy. One of my favorite quotes was from his sister, Nancy Ellis, who in the 1988 election was trying to make it sound like George Bush Sr. was an average guy, despite the fact that he was mystified by the scanners of a supermarket.
Oh my God, Sean just told me about that.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Can you imagine the erection that Bill Clinton got when he saw that, though? It's just like, the scanner.
Well,
I'm gonna take this.
This was during Dukakis. And the Dukakis
it was during, I thought it was during 92. Wow.
I'm pretty sure it was during.
Are you serious? Dukakis couldn't even cap. I'm pretty sure that was during Clinton.
Maybe. And but the quote where he's just an average guy, his sister said something to the effect of, and I tweeted it out. I couldn't find the link, but I'm quite sure that was the quote. We were raised by strict Midwestern parents. If we left our tennis rackets out in the rain, we got punished.
It was in 92.
On top of which, George Bush was able to pardon a couple of guys who probably would have implicated him in the Iran-Contra deal.
More than a couple, right? Wasn't it quite a few?
Well, two of the biggies, who were Cap Weinberger and I can't remember the second one off the top of my head. I probably should have
Donald Trump should definitely not pardon anybody that can implicate him in a criminal conspiracy.
Right, exactly.
It would be a big undermining of normalcy. Now, everybody involved in the cocaine shipment pipeline to fund paramilitaries, I'm just gonna give them a nice little slew of pardons before we have an illegal invasion of Panama. He
also, in an attempt to prove his bona fides to his right-wing base, completely ignored the existence of HIV and AIDS to the detriment of thousands of people's lives and arguably ending of people's lives.
Haven't even mentioned the Horton ad.
Can't win them all.
Laid the groundwork for racist campaigns to this very day.
Well, he voted against the Civil Rights Act first time around, or said he would have in his first race for Congress. I think it was in '64. Of course, Willie Horton, and he even implied that there was something really mysterious about Dukakis for being Greek. For being of Greek heritage.
I think we know what that means. Studied what the Greeks did up at Yale. The symposium wasn't just an exploration of ideas.
But my understanding is a lot of people thought that the Bushes were actually contrary to the sort of the look that they have in public, real a-holes. And, that they were more of the ilk of like Barbara when she went to that Houston Astrodome and looked around and said, look at all these people here who had been displaced from New Orleans. Like, they have a better lifestyle here
than they do at home. It's working out very well for them. That's the verbatim quote.
I just want to say that George Bush Sr. has passed. I think to a certain extent, there's a very good argument that almost implicit in being and necessary in being a president of the United States, that you are somewhat sociopathic or you are a war criminal or, you have to, but I would say that, and to the extent that that's true or not, I don't know. I'm not capable of making that assessment. But if it is true, Bush would be in the sort of like, I would say top 25%, maybe top 20% of the worst
Oh, and don't forget, he was a prolific groper in his
Wait,
twilight
I was
years.
going to ask.
David Copperfield.
I was going to ask a question about that. That was serious. How many times do you think he faked his own death so he could grope a nurse?
That's right.
It's like, I'm not breathing anymore.
And,
Oh, David Copperfield.
right, exactly.
That was
So I'd like to take this time to remember him. I mean, not the least of which, like, how about raising your family better so that we don't get George Jr. But and I left out his basically telling the Shias to rise up,
the Kurds
and the Shias too.
and the Shias too. But the Kurds were,
The Kurds,
Just total
but the
mass
Shia,
murder.
he said in the South, like, rise up.
right.
And
Rise up.
also was very I don't know that we have the real story about how Saddam thought he could invade Kuwait and that it was okayed, but we certainly do have the real story as to the lies that were sold to the American public as a way of getting into that first Gulf War. I just am referring to, people can look it up, the story of the babies in the incubators that were being killed in Kuwait. But with all that said, I want to just recognize that a former president has passed. And I know for me, I look back, and this was one of those memories I had of George Herbert Walker Bush that I will never forget. Can we roll that tape?
We have a fucking.
What?
That was George H.W. Bush.
Okay, here we go. And this is, of course, a famous clip where George Bush, I think it was in 1991, I believe, if I remember correctly. In fact, I made one of my first videos, 92. I made one of my first videos. I cut it between two video decks for Cross Comedy, starring David Cross, about this incident. And so it's always stuck with me. And so George Herbert Walker Bush, this is the way I would like to salute you, with the way that you saluted the Japanese Prime Minister Kiichi Miyazawa back in 1992 at a dinner in January. There he is. 4x3 video. He's not feeling so great.
This is really not feeling great.
Slumps over and vomits on
That's the weirdest vomiting I've ever seen.
the Prime Minister's lap.
Little trick I learned in CIA school.
You just laid down
You
and
lay-
let
yeah.
it trickle out.
I needed to show the Japanese that I wasn't going to be a pushover in tariff negotiations. So what you do is you pretend you're ill.
And he came out and later, with such great humor, he said something to the effect of, like, I told Barbara just to roll me under the table and continue on with dessert.
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah.
Let me just indulge a couple of requests I've got for 5 seconds, which is, Jeb, stop being such homo. Dad, die. Stop crying. You are no bad.
Wait, I don't understand.
You don't remember Barbara Bush throw mama from a train from the primaries?
I do, but she's like
Jeb is-
mutated into
Jeb
like a
is crying.
Japanese samurai version of that. Did you not hear that?
I didn't hear that, but I guess Japan on the mind, subliminal influence.
You were, yeah, it all became.
Arigato, Jeb. I am fat samurai now. Jeb, you dishonor family.
You must throw brother from train.